You know a celebrity is different when simply walking into a room becomes a comedy scene. But Shaquille O'Neal isn't just different, he's complete chaos in human form. From roasting celebrities live on camera to flirting with interviewers without warning, Shaq somehow turns every moment into internet gold. Whether he's making royal guards panic in London, shocking Kevin Hart on live TV, or getting humbled by spicy chips, nobody creates unforgettable moments like him. The funniest part is that none of it ever feels planned. This is why the world can never get enough of Shaq. And these moments prove exactly why he's one of the funniest celebrities alive. There are celebrities who can command a room with talent, fame, or charisma. And then there's Shaquille O'Neal, a man so naturally hilarious, unpredictable, and larger than life that every moment around him somehow turns into pure chaos. Whether he's roasting celebrities, flirting with interviewers, accidentally terrifying people with his size, or turning an ordinary story into comedy gold, nobody breaks the internet quite like Shaq. One of the funniest examples came when he casually told a story about getting himself into trouble in London. During an interview, someone asked him if it was true that he had once been detained in the UK. Shaq immediately started laughing before explaining what happened. Apparently, one of his friends had dared him to make the famous royal guards move while they stood outside the palace. The challenge came with a ridiculous bet, $50,000. Now, most people would know better than to mess with guards who are literally trained not to react, but Shaq has never exactly been most people. He walked right up to them, started making faces, dancing around, and trying everything possible to break their focus. At first, nothing happened. The guards stayed perfectly still. That only encouraged him more. Finally, Shaq bumped into one of them, and suddenly guards came rushing out from nowhere. The way he told the story had the entire audience losing control with laughter, because only Shaq would turn an international incident into a stand-up routine. And the thing about Shaq is that his energy follows him everywhere. Even when other celebrities are talking about him, he somehow appears out of nowhere like a giant comedic jump scare. That happened during one hilarious moment with Kevin Hart. Kevin was joking on a talk show about randomly running into Shaq at Home Depot. According to Kevin, Shaq wasn't even shopping seriously. He was just wandering around helping strangers load items into their cars because, apparently, he had nothing better to do. Kevin described Shaq walking up to random people saying things like, "You want me to grab that? I'll help you." The image alone was already hilarious. One of the most famous athletes on the planet casually acting like an employee at Home Depot. But then, in perfect comedic timing, Shaq suddenly walked onto the stage while Kevin was still telling the story. The crowd completely exploded. Kevin could barely hold himself together because the giant he was describing had literally materialized behind him. Another legendary Shaq moment happened with Yao Ming. For years, Shaq genuinely believed Yao couldn't speak English, not because Yao told him that, but because Shaq had never actually tried speaking to him. One day during a game, Yao hit him with a smooth move in the paint. Shaq complimented him, expecting silence in return. Instead, Yao calmly responded, "Thanks, my brother." Shaq froze in complete shock. "You speak English?" he asked. Yao looked at him completely confused and replied, "Shaq, you never talk to me." The realization hit Shaq instantly, and the audience burst into laughter. It was such a perfectly human moment, a misunderstanding so ridiculous that only Shaq could admit it publicly and somehow make himself the punchline. Then there was the unforgettable moment with Mila Kunis. During an interview, Mila mentioned that she didn't spoil her kids with excessive Christmas gifts. Before she could even finish explaining herself, Shaq immediately interrupted with absolute confidence. "I'm Shaq-a-Claus," he announced. The audience erupted. That's the magic of Shaq. He can turn even a completely normal parenting conversation into a comedy sketch within seconds. And his timing is so fast that people rarely see the joke coming before the room is already exploding with laughter. Sometimes his questions are so absurd that celebrities don't even know how to respond. During another interview alongside James Corden and Victoria Beckham, Shaq suddenly asked if marrying the Queen of England would make him the King of England. The room immediately fell apart. James tried explaining that it doesn't work like that, while Victoria struggled not to laugh at the sheer randomness of the question. But Shaq delivered it with such genuine curiosity that somehow it became even funnier. And when it comes to flirting, Shaq might honestly be undefeated. One interviewer tried keeping things professional while complimenting his eye contact. That turned out to be a massive mistake. Shaq instantly leaned into the joke, calling her beautiful and refusing to let the interview return to normal. Every question she asked somehow became another excuse for him to flirt. When she asked what the first thing he does in the morning is, Shaq replied that he wakes up asking, "Hey, you all right?" The interviewer completely lost it, laughing. Then Shaq kept going, joking that he would follow her around all day because she was interviewing him. The funniest part wasn't even the words, it was how naturally he delivered them. Shaq flirts with the confidence of someone who genuinely enjoys making people uncomfortable in the funniest possible way. Another classic moment came when he introduced himself as Dr. Shaquille O'Neal. The interviewer immediately started asking what kind of medicine he practiced. Shaq explained that he had earned a doctorate in education, but instead of stopping there, he turned the entire conversation into another comedy routine. When she jokingly asked if he was a therapist, he answered, "I can be if I want to." Then he proudly declared himself the love doctor. At that point, the interviewer had completely given up trying to maintain professionalism. Only Shaq could somehow stumble into finding David Beckham's wallet in Beverly Hills and turn the entire thing into a prank. Shaq explained that he found the wallet while walking around. The image of Shaq attempting to run a fake ransom operation over a wallet is exactly why people love him. Even good deeds become comedy stories when he's involved. Of course, one of the funniest things about Shaq is watching him attempt challenges with absolute confidence, only for reality to humble him instantly. During one challenge involving unbelievably spicy chips and fries, Shaq confidently declared that the heat wouldn't affect him at all. He proudly thought he was joking, but Shaq insisted that every zoo he visits ends the same way. The gorillas run toward the glass and start reacting wildly. Shaq demonstrated the encounters during interviews, acting out how the gorillas pound against the glass while staring at him. The audience could barely breathe from laughing. Even Justin Bieber wasn't safe from Shaq's jokes. During a roast-style moment, Shaq joked that Bieber had once ranked among the most hated people alive, hilariously comparing the ranking to dictators. The delivery was brutal, but somehow still playful in the way only Shaq can pull off. Then there was the unforgettable chaos involving Steve Harvey. Every time those two appear together, it feels like a disaster waiting to happen. During one segment, Steve asked contestants to fill in a sentence involving the phrase, "a big," and Shaq immediately started fighting for his life, trying not to say something outrageous on live television. You could literally watch him physically struggling to behave himself while the audience screamed in anticipation. But beneath all the jokes, Shaq also has genuinely wholesome moments. One emotional story involved calming down his son before surgery. His son was terrified, shaking nervously before being taken into the operating room, so Shaq invented a funny story on the spot to make him smile. He told his son that a beautiful nurse named Anesthesia was about to arrive, and that after meeting her, he wouldn't remember anything. Changes with John Cena became legendary. The two giant personalities traded ridiculous nicknames back and forth, trying to outdo each other with increasingly terrible puns. And while some jokes landed perfectly, others crashed immediately, especially during one infamous moment when Shaq responded to an inappropriate hypothetical question with an answer so outrageous that the entire room collapsed into stunned laughter. Nobody knew whether to laugh harder or apologize afterward. Another incredible moment happened when comedian Jay Farrow impersonated Shaq directly in front of him. Jay perfectly captured Shaq's deep voice, sensitive personality, and playful ego, joking that despite being huge and intimidating, Shaq secretly cared deeply about what people thought of him. Shaq couldn't stop laughing because the impression was painfully accurate. And despite all the fame, Shaq genuinely enjoys helping ordinary people. One day, he walked around handing out free pizzas to families and community centers. He hugged strangers, joked with kids, and spent time talking to people who had no idea they were about to meet one of the biggest sports legends alive. Some people didn't even recognize him. One kid actually asked if he was Michael Jordan. Without missing a beat, Shaq replied, "No, I'm better than Michael Jordan." That confidence mixed with complete silliness is peak Shaq. And somehow, even a man worth millions once had his credit card declined at Walmart. Shaq explained that after being traded to Phoenix, he went shopping in the middle of the night to furnish an empty apartment. TVs like a celebrity, and more like a real-life sitcom character, wandering through the world creating chaos wherever he goes. He isn't just funny because he tells jokes. He's funny because his entire existence feels unpredictable. Every story becomes bigger. Every moment becomes louder. Every interaction somehow turns into entertainment. And honestly, the world is way more fun because Shaq is in it. Shaq isn't just a basketball legend anymore. he's basically a walking comedy show. Every interview, every public appearance, and every random interaction somehow turns into a viral moment. That's what makes him impossible not to watch. So if these moments made you laugh, wait until you see the next level of Shaq chaos. Because somehow, the bigger the moment gets, the funnier he becomes. And honestly, nobody entertains the world quite like Shaquille O'Neal.